So hello students, welcome back to the video classes, and I am Anik Ghosh with you, your chemistry teacher for chapter water. And I think you are watching all the video classes so far. Okay, I think you are understanding them as well, right? And I know that you know what would you have to do if you don't get any of it. Then just have to write it on your forum. Okay, today we are going to start with the chapter water. And this chapter is very important because in this chapter we are going to learn from where this water is coming, what is the water cycle, and what how many types of waters are there in our earth. Okay, which waters are drinkable and which waters are not drinkable. So if I just try to think about it, our earth, if you just think about a picture on the of the earth, if you just try to look a satellite picture of the earth, what would you see? You would see the entire world is blue in color, isn't it? Now why the color of the earth is blue? Like, it's a no-brainer, just because the entire earth is like surrounded by most of it, it's most of it is water only, right? That's why we see the earth blue from the sky. Got it? But still, I think you have heard that there is so much water crisis in our earth. Still, water is a matter of concern to us. From 1933 we are celebrating a particular day which is called the World Water Day. So why are we doing that? Okay, why water is so important if that is present in that much amount in the earth? Okay, so there are so many questions inside it. And are we able to drink all the types of water? Are we able to drink water from the oceans? Are we able to drink the water from the rivers? So which type of waters are we able to drink? Right? So there would be so many types of questions. From where this water is actually getting generated? So today in this class, we are going to learn about all of it. Okay. So now, definitely, so we would start with the topics covered. So in this video, we are going to cover, just give me a moment. Yeah. So in this video, we are going to start with the World Water Day I was talking about. Apart from that, the distribution of water, like how the water is distributed throughout the world and inside the like ground and all the way. Okay, so how it is distributed. Today we are going to learn that. Apart from that, we are going to learn about the water cycle, different forms of water. So water is not only there in one form. We know that there are states of matter, right? There are so many states of matter, right? Similarly, in how many forms would we be able to find water? We are going to learn that. Apart from that, we are going to learn about water cycle. So how this water is getting inside our atmosphere, how the rain is being formed, everything about it. Apart from that, source of groundwater, water table, infiltration, and aquifer. So today we are going to learn all these things, and definitely after learning all these things, you definitely feel enriched about this topic. Okay. And now I want your 100% attention here before we start this class, because this chapter is very much important. Okay. We have had a little bit of discussion about this chapter in class 6. Okay. If you are with us from class 6, then definitely we have the discussions about this chapter earlier as well. And now we are going to start, we are going to resume the topic from there. Okay. Now, so to start with, I'll tell you, this is how water looks like. Okay, this is a ball and stick model where you can see the water is looking like a V, and this is oxygen and these two are hydrogen. You know that the formula of water, the symbol of water is H2O. The formula is H2O, right? So there are two hydrogens and one oxygen, isn't it? So it looks like this. So this is the structure, this thing over here, the black one is the oxygen, and these two white balls are the hydrogens over there. So this is how water is formed. Now you can see there are bonds formed. Here is a bond. We call it a bond. Okay, these sticks are called bonds. Okay, this is not James Bond, right? This is chemical bond, and these bonds are formed via chemical reactions. And we know that chemical reactions are something special, the things that makes new type of substances, the things that makes new types of products that doesn't have any relations with its constituent particles and all these things. We know about it, right? Now here you go, here you can see this is the structure and formation of oxygen. There is oxygen and two hydrogens balls are over here, and they are connected with a stick in between them. We call them chemical bond. So water is formed via chemical reactions. Fine. Chemical reactions between whom? Chemical reactions between hydrogen and oxygen. So if we react hydrogen and oxygen together, we are going to get this water as a result. Fine. So this is how water is formed chemically, artificially. Okay, but this is now water. This is not the way we find the water to drink. So let's see. So snow or ice, both of them are solid, exists on the earth in the form of ice caps at the poles of the earth, glaciers and snow covered mountains. These are the main sources of water on the earth. Water is liquid. Water liquid is present in oceans, lakes, rivers, and even the clouds. Right? Now let's try to think what they're trying to say over here. So they are trying to say, they are trying to tell us the what are the sources of water. What are the sources of water? Fine. So they are saying that in the North Poles and the South Poles and the polar regions, the glaciers we see, okay, the snows we see, okay, these things are mainly the sources of water. So basically the glaciers and all these things, snows and all, they are nothing but the solid forms of waters, isn't it? So what is snow? What is ice? Think about it. Just take some water, okay, put it in your refrigerator. You'd be able to get take ice from there. So ice is nothing but the solidified form of water, isn't it? Right. So the thing is, glaciers and snows, they are also made up of water only, but they have solidified because of the temperature. In the poles, there are more than like there are less than 0 degree temperature, and we know that the melting point of water is 0 degrees centigrade, right? Or freezing point, whatever you want to say. So for that reason, when water goes under 0 degree centigrade, it forms ice, and the enormous amount of ice present in the poles, they are the main sources of water, the water we drink. Got this point? Now apart from that we get water from oceans, lakes, rivers, and even the clouds. Now right now all these things are very much I would rather say like it is not that much clear to you from where we are getting these type of things, and how are they giving us water, but definitely we are going to read about that. Fine, stay with me. One more thing, water are also found in the water vapor present in the atmosphere. Fine. So we know that in the atmosphere there are gases, there are oxygen gases, there are carbon dioxide gases, there are nitrogen gases, isn't it? They are only we would be able to find there only we'd be able to find water as well, but not in the form of ice and not in the form of liquid as well, but in the form of gas only. Fine, fine, getting my point. So that was all about it, the sources. Now, okay, so this thing might, disturb you for a moment. Let me just see. Wait for a moment. Okay, so now we can continue. Just wait for a moment. Yeah. Yes. So over here, you can see. Just wait for a moment. Yeah. Just give me a moment so that this video gets loaded. Okay. Yeah, it's done. Now, in this video, we are going to learn about what are the water bodies present, from where we are getting the waters. Okay. So here he's trying to tell you that when the water falls from a hill, okay, falls from a hill, and after that, when it gets into the plain land, initially when it's falling from the hill, it's looking like a river, isn't it? And when it's falling on the plain land and becoming a stagnant water inside that, so this thing looks like a river. But when it is falling on the plain land in the stagnant and becoming a stagnant water, we call it a lake. Okay. So now we are going to learn about the water bodies on the earth. So oceans. So as the oceans are covering up to 70% of the earth, just think about it. The oceans are covering the 70% of the earth. But the questions lies there. As I told you, still we are having water problems. So why is it? Why is that, right? So just because the ocean waters are not safe to drink. For that reason only, we cannot use the ocean waters to drink, and that for that reason only we have a still water crisis. Then which type of water can we drink? These are the oceans, right? Atlantic, Indian, Pacific. So Pacific Oceans is the largest one, right? You know that 30% of the Earth's surface is covered by Pacific. Now, what is the difference between a sea and an ocean? The sea is found when where the lands sea is found where the lands is meeting the ocean. That part is called the sea. Okay. So Mediterranean Sea is the part of Atlantic Ocean. We know about it, right? So now this one is the river. You can see like the rivers is are the starting from some sort of these. You can see like over here. Okay, in the top of the hills, there is something white. Okay, a white layer is there, isn't it? That is the ice in here. In here, the white layer you can see that is the ice, and the river is coming from that hills only, right? So maybe this is getting generated from that ice only. And is this is just flowing like in zigzag motions through the entire lands and just falling into the ocean. This is what rivers do. So what happens is, from this ice they got melted, they melt to make this rivers. Apart from that, you have also seen that rivers, the water in the rivers are also coming from the rains as well. So the rain and the melted ice from the different types of glaciers and different types of ice bodies. So from there, when the ice got melted, only then from there the sea is getting, the river is getting generated, isn't it? And from where the river is has started getting generated, that part is called the source. And where the river meets the ocean, that point is called the mouth. Okay, mouth. That's the point. So this rivers contains fresh water. These waters are the waters that we can drink. The fresh water is the water that we can drink. So these are the drinkable water. Fine. This is the drinkable water. Fine. Nile is the world's longest river. So far we have also seen that with rivers, the river is just flowing, right? It flows, it flows and just meets the ocean, falls like that. But what about the lakes? Then what is a lake? So lake is just like a stagnant water, a big stagnant water body. Now you can see in the picture, this water body is not generating for some places. Okay, this is just a stagnant water body which is just present there, and the water is not moving inside that. Like the waters of the rivers are moving, right? They are just movable water, right? They are dynamic, but not like the lake. Lakes are static, right? So So how the lakes are formed? When the water finds a basin, right? What is a basin? So basin, right? Like inside the land, when there is a hole like this, that is called a basin. Now, when for a moment, yeah. So when the water finds its way to this hole, this is called basin. So when this water find this way to here, that is what makes a lake. Okay. Now, how the waters are finding its way to here? So it's maybe because of the rain, as you have seen already, they're saying it may be because of the rain, or maybe the underground water is somehow sipping into that basin. Okay, in both the ways, this water body, this lakes can be prepared. Okay. So if you do not give him continuous water, so they would dry out. Okay. They need a continuous source of water for the lakes. So you can see when the big meteor just fall into that place, so there was a basin, right? There was a hole, big hole just formed there, and the rain is when the rain is falling there, then there is a water body, new water body which is getting generated, right? So you have seen like you have heard about Dead Sea. So Dead Sea is not a sea, that's a lake they're saying. And because we call it sea because just there has an immense amount of salt in it. So inside the sea, you know that there is an immense amount of salt inside the sea. So that's why we call it Dead Sea. Okay. And there is no animals that can live there. I think that's it, I guess. You have understood about the water bodies, from where the water is getting generated, and what type of water that are there that we can drink. Okay, I think you got it so far. Now, just move on to the next slide. Now, World Water Day. As we are discussing about it, it's like uh, right now, there's a very big problem. A new problem has been generated because we don't have enough water. The population the population on the earth is ever increasing, right? When the population is increasing, the demand of water is simultaneously increasing, isn't it? As the demand of water is also increasing, but you can see like there are some limited sources of water only. So for that reason, we need to stop wasting water, because the water is getting precious day by day. Okay, so for that reason, we need to generate new awareness about water. This initiative is called World Water Day. Okay, this is celebrated on 22nd March. Okay, so in 2020, the motto of this World Water Day was water and climate change. So in this year, in 2020, what they did is they tried to show us that how the water is affecting the climate. So if you want to save your climate, you have to start saving your water. So this campaign has been started long time ago, and still it is very much active. Okay, so there are so many nations who are participating in this campaign to save our water bodies. Okay, because we know that you cannot live without water more than 2 to 3 days, right? So that is the thing, we need the water to to keep our cellular functions going. You know about it, you have read it in your biology classes, right? So that's why we need water the most. The plants need water the most because they generates their food from water, doesn't it? So you can understand the importance of water through it. So we need to save it. For that reason, there is an awareness program which is called the World Water Day, which is celebrated on 22nd March. Okay. Now, distribution of water. Only 3% of the water on the surface is fresh, as we were saying. Like 70% of the earth is surrounded by the oceans only, but only 3% of the water is fresh water. Fresh water are those are drinkable. We drink. Not only drinkable, we use for our different types of like different types of works inside our home as well. Okay, to wash dishes, to wash your clothes and all these things. There also we need the fresh water only, because the ocean water is not is make going to make it every, like, ocean water contains so much salt, right? So it's going to ruin your every metal, or the things, the dishes, all you use, everything, it is going to ruin them. So for that reason we cannot use the ocean's water. We have to use the fresh water only. So the remaining 97% resides in the ocean. So among, like, if this 70%, if we take that we have 100% of the water, so among them only 3% of the water is fresh, and rest of the 97% is just inside the oceans. So this is the ocean water. So we cannot use them. We have to use the fresh water only. Of fresh water, now the work is not done yet. Of fresh water, 69% are residues in glaciers. So if we now take this 3% as 100%, then among in that as well 69% is there in the glaciers. So we cannot use that as well. Okay, now there is only 31% left. Okay, resides in the glacier. 30% underground, and less than 1% is located in the lakes, right? So from the 31% of the 3%, 30% is inside the earth. Okay, and 1% is there in the lakes and the rivers and the swamps. So the thing we see in front of our eyes, if that is not an ocean, so that is under this 1% of the fresh waters. Fine. Now, different forms of waters. So water circulates in three forms. So that states of matter, and there we have learned that there are mainly three forms, three states of matter, isn't it? Solid, liquid, and gas. So that is the same thing for water as well. So water is of three types: solid, liquid, and gas, right? The solid, this thing is known as ice, isn't it? This liquid part is known as the water we drink. Okay, and the gas is known as water vapor or steam, right? Steam. Okay, now they, in this form, they can be anywhere in these three forms. So in the formation of water vapors or vapors, you can also say vapors as well. Okay, so in the forms of water vapors, you find them in the clouds, isn't it? You find them in the clouds. In the forms of solid, you find them in the glaciers. In the forms of liquid, you find them in different types of water bodies, isn't it? Now, that is what they're trying to tell you. In different types of poles inside the mountains and everywhere in the glaciers, everywhere you see water as a solid, right? In liquid form, water is present in the oceans, the lakes, the rivers, all the water bodies, isn't it? Groundwater. And in the gaseous form, it is vapor, in water vapor in the air. So in the air, we know there are carbon dioxide, there are there are oxygen, so there are nitrogen, there are helium, argon, all these things, inert gases. And in there, you'd be able to find water in the form of vapors only, right? We call it humidity. Think about it. When like the climate is a little bit humid, perspiration occurs so much, right? We feel, there's the entire, like, perspiration would be entire our body, in the entire body, right? So that is the thing, because the entire the entire climate is now having a huge amount of water vapor inside it. Okay, the entire atmosphere right now, just at that place. Okay, So that is why we call it a humid weather, isn't it? So we call it humidity. Fine. Now, yeah. So here you can see they're trying to tell you about the water cycle. Now, what is the water cycle? So if you try to think about it, like waters and everything are there, like inside the water bodies, isn't it? The waters are there inside the water bodies only, right? So let's think that this is a lake, okay? And this is the cloud, the sky. Let's try to draw a sun as well. You can draw better than me, isn't it? This is the sun, okay? This is the sun, okay? It's so hot and it is just burning, right? This is the sun. Now what's happening is when the sun rays, the hot sun rays are falling into these water bodies, so what's happening is that all the water is getting evaporated. Okay, it is getting evaporated. Okay, it is getting evaporated. Now all these water molecules, those are getting evaporated, they are going to the sky. And as they're moving up, the temperature in the atmosphere decreases. As the temperature decreases, it gets cooled down. It gets cooled down. As it is getting cooled down at a particular height, it would again form droplets, and they would stay in the clouds in the form of droplets, in the form of water droplets. These clouds over here, they are made up of these clouds over here, they are made up of dust particles. They are made up of different types of smoke and all these things. So they would hold these droplets inside them. Okay, and the water would keep on going up, and there would be a time when these clouds would get saturated. They would get saturated. Now these clouds are water carrying clouds. Okay, so these are the clouds that comes to a place and you know pours these waters. We call it precipitation, and pours these waters as rain. Now as this is falling like a rain, it is again falling into the lands and all. Okay, and from the lands it is again flowing into the lake. So you can see how in a circular manner the entire water is going to the cloud, and from there this is coming down like a rain, and from there it is going again to the lake, and it is just a cycle over here. We call the entire thing as water cycle. So that was the introduction. So we are going to learn about all these 4 steps in details later. Now we are going to watch a video of it. Okay, let's see. So now if I just come over here to the picture, yeah. So you can see in this picture over here, this is entirely giving you the idea about the water cycle, isn't it? So first what happens is there are the oceans, there are the lakes and whatever you say. So it gets to the cloud with the help of the process called evaporation, right? Because of the temperature of the sun. Okay, so it just finds its way up through the process called evaporation. Now after going up, what is happening? After going up, the wind is taking this to the clouds, and the wind is carrying the entire thing to the land. Now after going to the land, it is getting condensed. Okay, what do you mean by the word condensed? When the gas is getting converted into the liquid, we call it the condensation reaction. Okay, the condensation process. Okay, so due to the condensation, it is getting formed, it is getting transferred into the like liquids, right? Like the rains, and it's just falling in the uh, land like the form of rain. Okay, it also gets deposited in the form of snow as well. Okay, and this rains are giving rise to the rivers, and the rivers are again taking the water again to the ocean or inside the ground. Okay, this is how in the circular motion the entire thing happens. Okay, that is why we call it a water cycle. Okay, I'll just watch this. The sun is heating up the water, right? From the oceans, lakes, and the different types of water bodies. They are getting evaporated, right? So plants also loses water, okay, at the process of transpiration, okay, and it just goes to the air, and it just cools down to give you the condensation process, and it just forms the water droplets inside the clouds. Okay, so this is the process. So when they get heavy, when they get heavy, and when they are getting saturated, when they're getting saturated and heavy, and when they collide each other together, when they are colliding together, they're giving you the thunderstorms and the rains over there, right? Rain, hail, or snow. Okay, that is called precipitation. So the things that falls on the earth that gets infiltrated to the ground. This water is available to us in the form of groundwater. That is what they're saying. And the remaining water that is, falling into the different places, that is just coming down like a river to the oceans, back to the oceans. So this is a cyclic process. But this just goes on and on and on and on. Okay, that is why we call it water cycle, because this goes on like a cyclic process. Fine. Now you can see the processes again: evaporation and transpiration. So transpiration, these are coming from the leaves of the plants. Okay, so during transpiration, the water leaves of the plants, they just gives up water to the atmosphere. Okay, and in the form of evaporation, that is forming for the lakes and the oceans and the rivers from there. So from there, what's happening is this evaporation occurs. Okay, due to the evaporation, the entire lakes and the oceans and the like different water bodies, they just go, the water from there goes to the atmosphere. So, and what is the reason behind it? Because of the heat coming from the sun. Okay, heat from the sun. Fine, that is the reason of this evaporation. Okay, and for the evaporation only, the next process, after that the next process is the condensation. Now in the condensation, what happens is, in this process what happens is, after reaching to the cloud, after reaching to the cloud, the water particles, after reaching to the clouds moves up, and here the temperature, as it moves up, the temperature, what happens to it? It decreases, isn't it? It decreases due to the decreasing temperature. So first, here the water is in the form of vapor. Okay, why? Because it is heated up. It is heated up by the sun. So for that reason, it is now a vapor. But when it just goes up, what happens is the temperature decreases. When the temperature started decreasing, so the vapor there, they turns into water again, isn't it? Water, water droplets. Okay, water droplets. They turns into water droplets now. And these water droplets, these are the water droplets that falls into the earth as rainwater. Let's see what we call that thing. This is the stage 2. Okay, this is the part 2. Now after that, what happens is the precipitation happens. So when the clouds they just hits each other, when they are saturated. Okay, let's try to understand these two clouds. Okay, both of these two are the clouds. What happens is when they get saturated means they cannot take any other water molecules. Saturated with water molecules, when they are getting saturated with the water molecules, what happens is they just hits each other. Okay, and when they hits each other, we can see the thunderstorms are coming and the water falls in the form of rain. Okay, we call the entire process as precipitation. What is the process called precipitation? When we just take something, okay, and after a mixture or something like that, and when we have done a reaction on it, when we have the things settle at the bottom of the beaker, they're not soluble anymore, we call that thing as a ppt or precipitation. Here the raindrops, those are coming, they are falling like a precipitation because they are falling down, to the ground. For that reason we call it precipitation. Okay, so this is the third stage. Okay, now the fourth stage is runoff and infiltration. Now what is infiltration and what is runoff? The precipitation either runs off into oceans, rivers and ground surface, or it's absorbed into the water. That is called infiltration. So when we are just considering that this is the ground, okay, and the ground is it is getting meted, sorry, and it is just meeting to the oceans, right? So this is the ocean for you. So when the water falls into the ground, two things may happen. One is the water would just flow to the ocean. Okay, we call it flowing to the ocean. It can do this, right? It can just flow to the ocean, or it can do another thing. It can just sip through the ground. Okay, the water sips through the ground. So the water that sips through, that is just getting deposited inside the ground. This water is the water that we are using in our everyday life. This is the water. We call it underground water. This is the water that is, we are using with the help of tube wells, or with the help of well, all these things. Okay, this process through which it just goes to the like underground water, the rainwater is going to the underground water. We call this process as infiltration. Fine. Now, water that collects or flows beneath the Earth's surface, filling out the pores or the spaces in the soil, sediments, and the rocks, that is called the groundwater. So, the groundwater is the water inside inside the soil. Okay. Groundwater is formed due to the rain and the melting snow. Okay, because the melting snow and the rain both are making forming this rivers and all, and they are just flowing over the ground only. So these waters inside the lakes and the rivers and all the fresh waters, they just sifts down to the ground through the infiltration process. So that is also a source of groundwater. We can also call it aquifers, springs, and wells. Okay, so these are the not these are the sources of groundwater. Okay, now you can see what is a water table. Now they are asking us what is a water table. So water table, if you just go through it, the water table is an underground boundary between the soil surface and the area where the groundwater separates spaces between the sediments and the cracks in the rock. So I think you haven't got any of it, isn't it? Let me tell you what is a water table. So can you see, like in this picture over here, when the water is falling down, it is just getting infiltrated. Okay, infiltrated to this level. We call this thing as the saturated zone below the water table or the groundwater. We call it the groundwater. Okay, fine. Water table is that line, that boundary that is, just separating the unsaturated zone and the saturated zone. The unsaturated water zone and the saturated water zone. That is called the water table. That is, separating them out. Okay, we call it water table. Now, infiltration, we have already discussed about it. So the process over here, you can see this is called infiltration. So how the water is getting there inside the ground, isn't it? This process is known as infiltrated. Infiltration. And what is aquifer? Aquifers are the underground water. You can say these are the underground waters. Nothing more than that. Okay, so after the unsaturated water level, there comes a line which is, just separating out the unsaturated water level and the saturated water level. The thing we call aquifers. Fine. So this is the thing. Okay, so you can see the pictures again. This is called aquifers. So you can see it over here as well. This picture of aquifer. Okay, now in this picture you can see like how the infiltrated water is taken out with the help of a tube well. So this is the first layer of the soil. This is the second porous layer, and this is another porous layer of the soil. So through these three layers, this water body, this waters goes to the ground, underground water. Okay. So now that's it about this video. Now let's see what are the frequently asked questions over here. How will you minimize the use of water inside the garden? We can reduce the usage of water inside the gardens by adopting drip irrigation method. In this method, water will reach to the root of the plants drop by drop, which will reduce the wastage of water. So if you just keep on using excessive waters, then it would just get wasted. And we cannot afford that because only 3% of the water is fresh. And among them as well, 70% is not usable. So the remaining 30%, that is the water we can use, isn't it? Up to 69% and 31%, that doesn't matter. So we need to keep it. So for that reason, we cannot afford the wastage of water. Fine. Now, what is infiltration? I think you are a master into this. So the way through which the water, you could say like this, the way through which the water sips into the ground and gets to the saturated water level. Fine. That is called the infiltration. The process water seepage into the ground is called the infiltration. Okay. And when the maximum and the minimum temperature is likely to be occurred during the day. So in the day, you'd have the maximum temperature is during the noon, maximum during the noon. Okay. And the minimum temperature would be there during the dawn. Okay, you'd feel the maximum amount of the, if that is a cold, that is, if the temperature is cold right now, then you'd feel the maximum amount of cold during the dawn only, isn't it? The maximum temperatures occur during the daytime, afternoon to be precise, and whereas the minimum temperature is early in the morning. Okay, so that's it for today's video. I think you have understood all of it. So what you have to do is, if you have any doubts, you just have to write it on the chat section of our forum. Okay, and we'll definitely get back to you. So that's it for this video. We definitely meet in the next video. Until then, just keep on learning from Ask IITians. Thank you, everyone.